Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Unstoppable Success, the podcast where we hear from amazing leaders, influential people out in the marketplace. We hear their insights, their tips, their tricks, and all the things that make them unstoppable. I'm your host, Jaclyn Strominger. I'm a leadership coach and success strategist, and I do help you leap to your greatest success. But today, I also get to introduce you to Mark McFatridge. And let me tell you a little bit about Mark. He's a distinguished track record. He actually began his leadership journey when he was tasked with revitalizing the least performing banking region of a national bank and in a region positioned 500 miles away from where he was normally, I guess, familiar with, right, Mark?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and against all odds, Mark not only succeeded in transforming this region, but also instilled a new spirit of achievement among his teams. This experience set the stage for further accomplishments, including challenges. Including these challenges, Mark actually founded Quaid in October 2021, and Quaid is a visionary assembly of high-performing CEOs united to redefine leadership through collaboration, wisdom, and mutual support. The organization is committed to fostering a culture where CEOs can be unapologetically authentic, leverage diverse perspectives, and drive personal and professional growth. So, welcome, Mark.
Jaclyn, thank you so much. That was quite a mouthful.
It
We
was.
need to
I was like, there was so much good in there, but there's so like I was like, oh my God, because I was reading it last night. I'm like, and I kept thinking, first of all, moving to I was excited to talk about your banking transformation because
Yeah.
that's huge, going someplace where you don't know. And then obviously what you're doing obviously right now with Quaid, because that's just also really impressive.
I love it. I love it, man. I've been blessed to get to hang out with really cool people, really smart people, neat opportunities all along the way. So this will be a blast. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
So I want to go back to the banking, right? Because you transformed a bank that wasn't doing well.
Yeah. It's I came out of school and I was in public accounting and then got into banking and really had some interesting opportunities starting from really basically the teller line and then moving up through where I was the chief administrative and chief financial officer for the Midwest region of a large national bank, and then had my first opportunity to become a bank president. And you'll appreciate this, the way it happened. My boss, who was my mentor, came into my office one Friday afternoon and shut the door. And I'm looking at him like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Hey, our community banks in Missouri and Western Kentucky are really struggling." I said, "Yes." And he said, I think it's because they're reporting into our guy in St. Louis, and the guy in St. Louis is awesome, and he's does really well. He's a great leader. Everybody respects him, but he had $3 or $4 billion of assets that he was managing in St. Louis proper, and didn't have time to get out to the community banks, and so they were kind of suffering. He goes, "So I want to start a new community banking group called Community Banks of Missouri and Western Kentucky." I go, "Steve, that is a great idea." He said, "Good, you're moving to Springfield, Missouri." I'm in Indianapolis, born and raised, and I'm like, okay. So that night, on my way home, I stopped and bought a bottle of wine and a map and took it home. And I said, "Honey, guess what?" And she's like, "Oh, we get to move. We're going to move to Birmingham, right? Like, because that was headquarters." And I'm like, "Well, not exactly Birmingham. We're going to move to Springfield, Missouri." And she's like, "Cool. Is that near St. Louis?" I'm like, No, not exactly." And so anyway, it turned out like it's a funny story and awesome and all that stuff. But literally, it was the worst performing banking group in the company, and partially because that group tried to compete with a lot of community bank, like true community banks, small 200, 400, $500 million banks, and they tried to compete with those banks who could just run circles over, kind of the bureaucracy that comes along with a national bank, right? And
Right.
so we weren't proud of our heritage is
You weren't
basically
really
what.
nimble. You were not
Yeah,
nimble.
we weren't nimble, but we could do things that they couldn't do,
Right.
and we and my predecessors weren't taking advantage of those things. So I'm like, you guys, look, here's where we can be excellent. Let's go be excellent and handle, we can serve this group of clients. And that made all that mentality made all the difference in the world.
Well, because you basically pulled out your strengths, and instead of try to competing with them with the other banks, you focused on the strengths that you had that they didn't have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was a certain level of client that we could serve excellently, and we were ignoring them trying to find because they were harder to get into, whatever. But there were fewer competitors in that streamline, so why not go there?
Right. Okay. So I just want to kind of point something out. Listeners, this is a really key thing. No matter what you are doing in your business, you are not meant to serve everyone, right? So
For sure.
so you are not there to, you know, reach every single person. You have a certain group and focus on a group because that's really key. We don't want the masses, you want to be focused. So I just kind of wanted to point that out because it really makes a difference.
Well, and I think it simplifies everything too, right? Like if you can identify whom you can be excellent for, and you do that, you know who those people are. You can design everything about your delivery set to them, whether it's product, whether it's people, whether it's marketing and advertising. You know exactly where these people live. And if you can then gain market share and substantial market share in that market, now you can go, okay, let's get outside of that. Who's like attached to that group? Okay, cool. Now let's build up those things. We've got a nice mass here, but now let's get out and serve the people that serve those people. And then you can start to expand and widen your audience a little bit more. But the simplification of identifying who you can be excellent for is it just really helps a lot in becoming excellent.
And I really love that because to me, that's one of the biggest things about unstoppable success. To have that unstoppable success, you really need to be, you need to know a specific audience that you're serving. You're not there for everybody, and there's enough business for everybody. We took that's like more about the abundance side versus
That's right.
scarcity. But when we really know that person that we're serving, it's so again, we're not serving everybody, you know, we're serving the right people.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Right. So you're in banking and you're here and you're expanding and you're obviously it's growing. How did you now get to where you are now, you know, serving and having this community, the CEO community?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the part of that story that I didn't share was, first of all, being a bank president or being a president of a company or a CEO of a company or an owner of a company is kind of a lonely space. And when we moved from Indy to Springfield, Missouri, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody in the marketplace. I didn't know anybody on my management team. So, and I didn't truly have any mentors. And I also grew up in a household where you didn't bring work home. And so I was on an island, like that proverbial island, right? Of trying to do it all ourselves myself and not lean on anybody. And it just so happened that because of the size of group that I was leading, I qualified to join Young Presidents Organization, YPO, worldwide CEO peer group, right? And joining that peer group changed my life because now I was surrounded by other like situated people who I could talk to, who understood the opportunities and challenges that come along with sitting in that seat. And so, we turned this banking group around. The bank wanted to relocate us because that's what big companies do. We didn't like it. We didn't want to. We stayed in Springfield. And I turned out that I really like to take stuff that's broken and fix it. And I would do that with banks. And so we did that a handful of times and ultimately retired from banking in January of 17 and kind of petered around and did some consulting work and got back to Indianapolis and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I kept coming back to the impact that joining a CEO peer group had on not only me professionally, but me personally, my family, all of it. and I wanted to have that same impact on others. And so I was looking around and trying to see if there was an organization that I could join, and I didn't find one that I loved, that I could join as a leader of peer groups, right? And so I said, screw it, I'm going to start my own and serve the type of people that I want to serve in the way that I feel they need to be served. And that's kind of that's how Quaid came about. So yeah, that's kind of that or origination story is the word
Right.
I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so it started, 15 years before I launched Quaid is when, that seed was planted in my head.
So I love that. So I'm just kind of curious. So when you were looking around, what were some of the qualifications or things that you were looking for in a group? Because there are, there's other groups out there, whether it's Vistage
Yeah.
or what another YPO or EO. So what's going to make yours different, or what wasn't serving you?
Yeah, I think, for me, being in a CEO peer group for 15 years, I'm now on year 19, right? So I'm still in YPO today,
Okay.
but YPO in and of itself, there are qualifications to get in. You have to do $15 million in revenue. You have to be under the age of 45 when you join. You have to have a certain number of FTE and that type of stuff, which is great, but there are so many companies that will never make $15 million a year. There are a lot of people that don't get into the leadership role at the CEO seat or the entrepreneurial seat until after the age of 45. And so I wanted to serve those people, right? A
Mhm.
lot of my banking career was serving that small to mid-sized company, and those are people that I like to hang out with. So
Right.
as I start to frame it, I never wanted to compete with YPO, right?
Right.
YPO has been so good to me and my family. So then you start looking, and because of my, at that point, 15 years of experience in a forum, I knew what I liked, and the things that I like that are different from some or similar to others. I love the independent peer moderator, right? Like a lot of or some peer groups are member moderated, right? So you've got a group of 10 and one person is the moderator for a year. I've seen that be really good and not so good, right? For whatever reason,
Right.
Jaclyn, some CEOs have a hard time holding other CEOs accountable, which sounds like the weirdest thing in the world, but they do. So having an independent moderator was really important to me. Um, I really love serving the whole person. So at Quaid, we talk a lot about, where are you mentally, physically, and spiritually, right now and in this moment. And you can talk about those things very freely, very openly, and so forth. Um, I love um, I love diversity within our circles, and not only demographic diversity, but also, revenue size, industry, tenure in the seat. Those types of things make for really interesting conversations and insights, and pushing each other. So, being able to have those diverse members of our, I call them allies, I call them
Yes.
circles, is really important. Um, I like half day versus full day, and especially when you're talking about small to mid-sized businesses, it's hard to take somebody out of the office for a full day, on a monthly basis. So those are just some of the things that were really important to me as I started to cobble this thing together and make it work for the people that I wanted to serve and how I wanted to serve.
Yep. So I want to go back to this for a second because I wanted to actually just talk about how, you know, the success you had from the group, from being in a group. Because I think
Mhm.
this is something to really, like listeners, I think this is really important, to be in a group. And I would say, I would say more mastermind style in a sense versus referral, but that's a whole other different, I mean, so
Yeah.
that's my personal opinion. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so if I'm being honest, I kind of cringe when I hear mastermind. Like I never wanted to
Yeah.
be a mastermind. Like I don't want when I lead a circle, I don't want the attention to be on me, right? I
Right.
want
Yeah.
I don't want to be the coach. I don't want to be the all-knowing person, right? And that's what I view as a mastermind.
Okay. Yeah.
What I love and what's been powerful for me is that group learning, right? Where you're learning from each other and especially you're learning from them in an experiential way, meaning that they're not saying you should do this. They're saying when I was in that position, I did X, I did Y, and I did Z, and I screwed up X and I screwed up Y, but Z worked out really good for me. Well, what does that do for me? That does for me, that accelerates me because I don't have to screw up on X and Y. I can go straight to Z. And so that peer learning component has been really powerful because you're getting it from somebody who's been in that exact position. And that could be making an acquisition, that could be a personnel issue, that could be discovering that your daughter's an alcoholic and you don't know how to deal with that, right? Like all those things are real and you hear from people and executive coaches are awesome, but to really benefit at that level, you've got to have an executive coach that has been through some stuff, right? And to
Right.
where you can benefit at that level. So that's why it's been so impactful for me. That's what we're trying to continue to build at Quaid. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the group dynamic of that.
No, I really like that. And I like that differentiator because when I think of, it's funny because when I think of mastermind, I think of more of the peer learning that you're getting people together. So it's
Mhm.
almost like our interesting definitions of it. But I really love
Yeah,
how you talked about peer learning because I think it is so crucial for anybody's success. And I would tend to say whether you're a CEO, an EVP, a VP, director, find a group that you can associate with where you have that peer learning. Because I think finding other people in that group, you might find somebody that might be above you in a little bit, so they could, there's a little bit of mentorship going on too.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I've written probably like 3 books in my head. I've never put any to paper, but one of my ideas in my head, and I believe it is, I think people need 3 things. They need allies, they need advisors, and they need advocates. And so allies are basically like situated people. They're in the exact seat as you are. You can talk to them. They're going to be cheerleaders for you, right? Oh, that's a brilliant idea, Jaclyn. I love that. You should do that. You should do that. You should do that. That's cool. They don't necessarily take you to the next level, but they make you feel good, right? The advisors are those mentors, right? They've achieved some things. They've taken you under your wing, under their wing. They're kind of saying, "Oh, yeah, that's an okay idea. I think you can take it to another level." And they push you a little bit. They still don't get you all the way over, but those advocates are the people that see something in you and they talk about you in rooms that you're not in and they bring you opportunities and push you to get to where you want to be. That to me, those are the things that everybody should seek out. And it doesn't matter if you're first year out of high school or college, or you've been a CEO for 20 years. Everybody needs those 3 type of people or groups in your life.
I think that's so true. So so right now, how many groups or, of Quaid do you have? Like, is it just in your area or?
Yeah, good question. So, this thing started as a lifestyle business. I was just going to have a couple of groups and I had 2 groups in like my first 3 months and then I was managing 5 myself and I was like, okay, A, the need is there, which I knew. B, how we're doing it, our model works really well. And so I wanted to scale it and have a bigger impact on people. So much for my lifestyle business, right? And
Right.
so what we've done is we've now moved into a licensee model, and so I launched that in November of 25, and since that time we've licensed 9 people. I think 5 are in Indiana. We've got somebody in Nashville. We've got somebody in New Jersey. We're getting ready to add Chicago, and so yeah, so those folks are now out building I call them circles
Yeah.
as we speak. So yeah, I think we've got 2, 4, 6 up and running. and then continue to build from there.
So curious. So when somebody's running a circle, is it a singular circle or is it, or, if you're talking like New Jersey, is the
Yeah.
person in New Jersey going to have multiple circles?
Yeah, likely they'll have multiple circles, right? So people that do really well with this are executive coaches, right? They're already calling on CEOs. So this is now a way to add another layer into their practice, right? And it actually becomes a little bit more efficient because you're coaching 10 people at a time versus 10 one-on-ones, right? So it could be additive and brings in recurring revenue and that type of stuff. Um, Recently retired C-suite folks do really well, and they may be doing it as a way to just stay engaged with really smart people. So they may have one, they may have two. We're also working with CPA firms to have them install Quaid circles within their practice, and that's what's happening in New Jersey, and then a CPA firm here in Indianapolis as well. So they're deepening their relationships with their existing clients. They're adding a revenue line and having an impact on a lot more people.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So what's the ultimate goal? Is there what's the long range goal? Like how many do you dream to have?
You know,
I
I
know
dreamt to
for
have
your lifestyle business.
right. I dreamt to have two, right? And so now, so I've screwed that all up. I don't know, right? Like sexy numbers sound great. Like, could we have 1,000 allies across the United States who then come together and build this network where they can rely upon each other? That sounds really cool. I don't know. Like, today it's just, like, I just want to continue to build and have an impact on people and associate with the right people that kind of live who Quaid is and represent us really well and have the same belief system that I do of the abundance mentality that you shared earlier. And how do we continue to grow and do and serve the right people? And if that's 100 people, that's great. If it's 1,000 people, that's great. But I want to serve the people that fit who we are and what we want to do and who believe. I don't want. I don't. That's not fair. I stopped using the phrase like-minded because that's
Right.
boring, right? I don't want to hang around with people who think like me. I want to hang around with people who are contrarians, right? Who want to push the envelope, who and not argue just for argument's sake, but come from different backgrounds and have good discussion and are okay to disagree with each other, but are curious about their mindset and that type of stuff. So those are the type of people that I like to hang out with and hope to serve.
So is it when you think about it, instead of I'm just thinking, as you said, it's not like-minded, but maybe similar values in a sense
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
in a sense of like
directly.
they want to help. They want, or
Well,
maybe have a
I
value or they want to help.
Yeah, or a growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
both personal and professional. So having a growth mindset. And again, you and I may be completely opposite on different viewpoints, but I want to I want to be able to have the conversation with you and understand where you're coming from, you understand where I'm coming from, and that's where it ends, right? We're like, "Okay, cool. I still don't believe what you believe, but
But
let's
that's
go
okay.
have a beer." Right? I
Right.
mean, like as opposed to just battling each other for days, it's like, okay, I at
Right.
least respect your opinion, but I'm going to stick with how I go.
Right. Right. I think I've said this to my daughter 1,001 times because she's at university in St. Louis, and she made some comment to me about some of the people that, you know, different political views and don't want to talk to other people for different political views. And I said, we have to get back to agreeing to disagree.
Yeah,
You can agree, as you just said, agree, disagree, go have a drink.
yeah,
Shakes hand, and everybody can have a different view. Your view and my view can be completely different, and I don't need to impose it on you, and you don't need to impose it on me, but we can still live happily in the
right.
same, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I wholeheartely agree, and it makes for interesting conversation, right? I like at a minimum.
Right. It does make for an interesting conversation. So I'm kind of curious. So, as you have you been building this, when you think back to, when you started out in that first, group, to what you're doing now, is there one instance that was really paramount, like in changing, that you can think of, like, wow, that was like a huge pivotal moment, like in
For
your.
For
you,
for
yeah,
you know, so it happened the very my very first recruit, right, who signed up was is a guy by the name of John Lofton, and John is the president of a large independent insurance company here in Indianapolis. He's somebody that I've known and I respected, and so I went into John to tell him what I was doing. My hope was that he would refer me some people of their clients, right? And so I'm walking and I'm talking through Quaid and here's my idea and here's what it's going to look like and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Can I join?" I'm like, yes. Like like in my head, we weren't built for somebody that led a company of John's company size, right? And so I'm like, yes. And and so that just it just validated it, right? Like what we were building is something that is unique and powerful and useful, and that so like that was the very first one was, it just validated it, and then like I said, in my first 60 or 90 days, I had the second group. And so, the first time that somebody referred somebody for the next group, like, okay, they're having a good experience with this. And it's like, damn, it's for real now. And then, that continued to go. And like I said, I got up to where I was running five myself, and I obviously since dialed that back. But yeah, those two things. I mean, John saying, "Can I be involved?" When my literally I was there to ask him for referrals, and he's
right,
like, "No, this is for real. Let me in."
right, right. And so, how many people are in each group?
No more than 10. I like the
No more.
intimacy of that, right? Like it's you're there for 4 hours. You want to give people enough time. That's enough time for people to get to know each other intimately. And so that's really important to me.
Yeah. It's something that I think is really important, and I want to, what something that you just said. It's get to know them
Hmm.
personally, intimately, and I talk about relationship capital. It's like one of the things that I feel like
Yeah.
I stress, talk about, so I'm blue in the face. And so I also want listeners to understand like building those true relationships really matter. So I'm curious, like, how do you see those relationships expanding and what's the impact of those relationships?
Yeah, it's huge. One of the things that I think we do really well that's been super powerful for me is the first time I bring a group together. A lot of them are meeting for the very first time. We do a couple things. One, we do a personality assessment and we bring in an expert to come in and share, everybody's person. We use MPO, we've used predictive index, we've used DISC, whatever, but we'll have an expert come in and talk about who's in the room, right? And whatever. Jaclyn, has a tendency to be a wallflower. So how are we going to draw her out? That's not true, right?
I know,
But
I
but
That's what
how are we going to draw her out? And and so
right.
is really boisterous and is going to have their opinion. And so how do we all communicate with each other? And so that's about an hour of that first meeting. And then what we do is we take the rest of the time together, the next 3 hours, and we have people tell their life story without talking about anything business. And we don't tell that, we don't share that up front that that's on the agenda. It does a bunch of things, Jaclyn. So as you would guess, most of us start out and say, "Oh, hi, I'm Mark McFatridge. I'm the CEO of Quaid." Okay, well, you can't do that in this situation. So now they start to panic. They don't know how to introduce themselves now, right? So they're like, well, I grew up in small town Indiana, and my dad did this, my mom did this, and they were raised, but they got divorced, and so all of a sudden they start to get vulnerable, and which is the key to
Right.
trust and everything about this deal. So we build vulnerability and trust from day one in these groups, and that carries forward because now you can talk about anything. If you've already talked about, the rough childhood that you had, or you got divorced when you were 22, or whatever, that opens everything up to build this trust and create a feeling of vulnerability is okay, of intimacy, of getting to know each other, and those relationships bond immediately. Versus if we were just talk about our companies and I got this degree and that degree and whatever, and got promoted at 24 and blah. That's surface level stuff that isn't going to get you where you want to go and have the same impact.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I feel like that's actually one of the things that I think is really important, and I feel like I've stressed this with a lot of people, is when you go into any networking event, catch yourself, do not ask a question about business until you've had five questions that you've asked about the person,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
get like talk about yourself, and or like, ask people to bring out the things about them so that you can share knowledge about each other. So that's you're getting to know them. You know, when you sit down if you're sitting next to somebody at a restaurant, or when you're thinking about sitting around a circle when you were kids, right? You have to say like, what do you like? And you have to go around the
Yeah.
room and everybody's got to try to remember everybody's name, and you could say, what's your share your favorite food and your animal, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Ask those questions. Like those are so perfect, right? But we
Right.
forget.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I think, well, I mean, you know this, right? People do business with people they like, right?
Right.
So to like somebody, you got to find something out about them, right? Is there something that we share common traits with or commonalities with? And that's way more fun. And then it doesn't even matter what you do, right? If I know
Right.
you and I trust you, I know that whatever you're doing, I want to be a part of because
Right.
we've already built that trust and relationship.
Right.
So, duh. Like we try to
Right.
make this
Right.
stuff
Like,
so
duh.
hard, and it's just like oh, well, that makes sense.
Well, it's almost like once you get to know people, there's certain people like, oh, I want to figure out a way that I can do something with Mark. I want to know how we can work together. I've got to figure that out because we enjoy each other's company. And you do like to do business with people that, like, and trust.
Yeah.
I don't know how often I share this, but when I had my bat mitzvah, God, just a few years ago, right? I was, I still remember this. I remember looking around, the room, that the people that were there, and they were friends of my parents, but they were also my parents' business associates. My parents were manufacturers reps. And I remember thinking, wow, like, granted, obviously they probably wrote off the whole thing,
Right.
but but the whole point was is that they were people that they all enjoyed each other's company, right?
Right.
And that was the key thing, that they had become friends. They did business, but they became friends. And I think it's really, you know, there is a church and state, but you do need to do business with people that you like.
Hmm. Yeah, and bringing it back to Quaid a little bit is one of the things that, and you had asked about mastermind, and I gave you my opinion there. The other thing is we're not a networking group. Like you,
Right.
this is not a biz dev opportunity for you, right? As a matter of fact, it's prohibited for you to solicit business from one of your allies. Now, if they come into you and they know what you do and they built this trust, they built this relationship, and they like, I need your services, that's okay, right? But what happens is because of that intimate knowledge that you have of each other, that relationship that you've built, my network becomes your network
Yes.
becomes his network, and so forth. And you're referring people because you're like, Mark's a good dude. You need to talk to
Right.
him and you need whatever he's selling, do that. And
Right.
people love that, right? Because there's so much out there today, and you're getting hit on LinkedIn and direct solicitation, and you don't know who's good or bad. And so you're like, I think that person's pretty good. But if it's coming as a referral from somebody that you know and trust, you're going to sign up for that every day.
Right. Yep. So I actually came up with this formula. It's relationship capital, right?
Yeah.
So it's the person times the network times to the nth degree of their network, right?
Yeah.
So, and that relationship capital is exactly what you just said. It's building, you know, who do you know that it's I always say like you're one conversation away from something great, or you're one person away from an amazing connection. And and so we look at that relationship capital equation, and we think about how we have to remind ourselves, right? It's not about me selling you, it's about me getting to know you. So how can we then serve each other?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
And
I love that you're not a it's not a referral,
yeah, yeah. No, it just it takes all the pressure off. And again, you like you're not sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, he's selling to me," like in the thing. So you can eliminate that as a thought because you just know it's not happening. And so everything there becomes very genuine, authentic, all those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really fantastic. So Mark, I could talk to you for hours about this because I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. But so tell our listeners how they can learn more about Quaid, more about you, and all the great things that you are doing because I think it's really, really spectacular.
Yeah, thank you for that. Certainly our website does a really nice job, and it's quaidcircle.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark McFatridge. Quaid's on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I think Facebook. I don't know. I don't get on that stuff, but no, that's by far the easiest way is
Right.
quaidcircle.com or
Okay.
our LinkedIn socials for sure.
Yeah. So, listeners, please do me a favor. Mark is truly amazing, and I want you to make sure that you connect with him. I will make sure all of those links are in the show notes. And then, additionally, please do me the favor and share this episode with people that you know, business associates and friends, because it's really important to hear this and hear how circles really are important to your success and the people that you surround yourself with. So please share this episode. And then speaking of communities, Unstoppable Success, we have a brand new school community, so we would love for you to jump in there. Right now, I will put that into the show notes, and we do some fun things in there every single week. And you never know, we might even have Mark come back and be one of our guests for one of our monthly roundtables. So I'm Jaclyn Strominger. This is Unstoppable Success. Thank you, Mark, for being an amazing guest.
Jacqueline,
And
this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And listeners, I hope you keep leaping to your greatest success. Thank you. I'm Jaclyn Strominger, and I want to invite you to join the Unstoppable Success community on School. You can go to Unstoppable Success at school-9143 and join us. In this community, you will get daily tips so that you can be unstoppable, and you'll also connect with other leaders and professionals who are also aiming for their unstoppable success and are there to help you succeed. So join us in the community. We can't wait to see you on School.